Fallen leaves are all over the garden at the moment. If you leave them on the lawn, they'll kill out the grass. There are other places where they don't do any harm, and if you gather them up, you can turn them into soil enrichment. Here's what you do. When they fall on a lawn, they stop the grass growing simply because they cut out light, they don't allow air circulation. You'll discover very quickly that underneath the grass will have been killed out and you haven't got a lawn anymore. In small areas, a rake is handy. The wire tooth kind are good for getting dead grass out of the bottom, but that's scarification of the lawn. For just getting the leaves off the top, these plastic tooth rakes are really easy to use. They don't get stuck in the grass, but they're hugely efficient at pulling up the leaves together so you can take them away and do something with them. But with larger areas, well, you need a bit more power. The leaf blower. They're not the quietest thing on earth, but they are hugely efficient for removing leaves over large areas where you'd wear yourself out with a rake. There's no point in just blowing them with no aim in mind, because it'll get windy tomorrow and they'll all get blown back. So what I try and do is make a clear area. I've blown the leaves off this patch already, and then get yourself tarpaulin, one of these garden sheets, spread it out in the area you've cleared, and then you can work on all those leaves that you've blown away, blowing them back into the centre. You can cart them out and put them where you want them. It's not just a case of waving it around and letting them all go everywhere. You're guiding them, and you can adjust the pressure by that tilting. When you start, you'll find that the leaves just blow straight across the tarpaulin, but there's a technique to slowing them down. When you get towards the edge, tilt the blower downwards. That way, they don't travel quite so far. But one thing is certain, when you've gathered them all together like this, you can bag them up and take them away much more easily than if they were blowing all over the place. It's also important to remove fallen leaves from ponds. Decomposing leaves release nutrients into the water, which encourages algal growth and can turn your lovely clean pond a less lovely shade of green. Leaves also suck up oxygen from the water, which can be harmful to any fish you may have. And get them out of your water features as well. They can clog up your pump and filtration system, which can stop them working properly. Another thing to think about are your beds and borders. Way back there among the shrubs, the fallen leaves can be left, but further forward, when they fall on small perennial plants and swamp them, they can really kill them out. Look at this little pile of leaves here. It's covering up a heuchera, a tender little perennial. It's not tender in terms of hardiness, it's tough as old boots, but its foliage is quite soft. If you leave the leaves on that little crown there, they're cutting out light, they're holding on to moisture, they're encouraging that crown of the plant to rot. And at the end of the winter, if it's been sitting under leaves all the time, it won't be there, it'll just be brown mush. The same's true of this leucanthemum here, a chrysanthemum relative. Just pull the leaves off them to let the air circulate around them. They're hardy enough then to cope with frost, but they won't succumb to rot because they've been swamped under this damp, rotting blanket of leaves. A little bit of care, and these two will come through to flower again well next year. There's a great temptation to over-tidy the garden, to take up every single fallen leaf, but no, there are places where you can leave them. Further back in the border, underneath the trees and the shrubs, the leaves are doing nothing but good. They've fallen onto the ground, they're not in the way of anything, they're rotting down, the worms are carrying the enrichment into the soil and making it better, and they're a wonderful place for insects to overwinter and for birds to forage for grubs and food. So when you've collected them up, what do you do with them? Well, for me, one of the most offensive sights in the garden is seeing a pile of leaves burning. What a waste, apart from being antisocial with your neighbours. What you can do is just mix them into your compost heap with all the other things like grass clippings, and there they will rot down, and the one helps the other to rot, and it gives you a little bit of tougher material inside your compost. But you can also rot down leaves separately on their own, particularly in a tiny garden where there isn't room to do a big heap like this. Get yourself a black plastic bin liner, pop it on the ground, and with your fork spear it, just to put a few air holes in it, not too many. Then open it up and fill it full of leaves. Now the important thing is that the leaves are damp, and they are at the moment, which is really good. If you put them in dry, they can often just stay dry and not rot much. So make sure they're moist, pop them in there, and if you like, you can sprinkle a bit of soil in and among them to add bacteria, but if they're wet like this and they're a mixture of different kinds of leaves, they will rot down. Now firm them down. You don't want lots of air between them. There's enough air coming in sideways through those holes for ventilation, but by packing down these moist leaves, you'll encourage the rotting to take place more quickly. Once that sack's full, you can tie it up and leave it somewhere, but until you've filled it, keep it weighted down with a bit of stone or a log, and that'll just keep them in there, gently rotting. It'll be a good year before it's ready to use, but it will turn into wonderful brown crumbly leaf mould that makes a great mulch in the garden in spring, seals in moisture, helps keep down weeds, enriches your soil with organic matter, and keeps lots of wildlife happy. Job done. So that's how I collect and use fallen leaves in my garden. What do you do? Comment below. If you're looking for gardening tips like this, why not subscribe to my channel? You'll find ways of improving your garden, whatever its size, every week.